and system size to sales. And we're doing this on a Friday today for lots of reasons. But Friday's a really good day. It's the end of the week, end of review of what's actually has happened over the week. And this week we are talking and we're talking about developing the sales leaders of the future. And we did start this conversation a couple of weeks ago. We did have a little bit of a technical issue last week, but we're back on track and we're speaking about what we were supposed to be speaking about last week, the ability to coach and mentor and what the difference is between the two. Have my good friend Shay Lynch on my left. Yes, got it correct. And we're going to have a deep conversation. He's in sunny Spain at the moment. So looking forward to this rich conversation as usual. Hey, we're back, and another really important next 20 minutes. We'll be having rich conversations in the air about coaching and mentoring and what the distinction is between the two. Future leaders, listen to this right now. Coaching is absolutely essential for your business, for your team. Without that, you need growth. But they also need to understand and reflect on that. So, Shay, the difference between coaching and mentoring, and what's your input on that?
Well, my thoughts on this, Jason, right? Both are very, very important, by the way, right? And they don't always have to be the same person either, okay? But inevitably, if you're a leader, you can do both, right? And sometimes it's worth doing as a joint, do the coaching and mentoring as a plan for an individual on your team, right? So mentoring for me, Jason, is all about helping people with skills, expertise, and experience, like teaching them what works, what doesn't work, right? And help them work through that. Sometimes you can shadow that person as well as a mentor to see how do they do things and help them do it better. However, for me, a coach, Jason, is someone who helps you build plans and roadmaps and counsels you. So I always talk, when I talk about coaching, I talk about three things. They need to coach in performance, development, and to be the counsel, right? And I know you have another word for that. So you need to help them move forward, build that roadmap to development that will support, first of all, what the business needs, but also will help to understand what does that person you're coaching need? What help do they need? What are they good at? What do they like to do? How can you align the business needs with their strengths and skills and move that forward and build that engagement? And then, Jason, like anybody, things don't always go according to plan. You don't always do things right. That's where a leader acting as a coach is much better than a leader acting as a dictator saying you did that wrong, don't do it again, right? A coach will help you find out what you did wrong. It will ask you questions. So you answer those questions, you learn, you listen, you say, you understand what you did wrong, and then how you don't make it wrong the next time so you can become better decision makers going forward. That to me is the role of a coach. And then if you're even, and I mean counsel, not just in work, Jason, when stuff is difficult in work, but also to understand them as a person, to understand what's happening in their personal life. Do they need a bit of flexibility? Can you support them in any way? Can you give them a bit of free or flexible time? Being like, and I always get back to this word, being a friend, Jason. Always believe it. What do friends do? They look out for each other and help each other. So that's me. Like, I do believe there's a very big distinction between that mentor and coach. But again, they can be separate people, but also they can be the same.
Yeah, I just taking a little bit of context about the connection with your team and the trust element. So if things are not right with your team members, whatever it might be, it's you've got to have that inclusion with an understanding where they are, and have that psychological safety around that, so they're okay and they're free to speak their mind without judgment,
Mm.
without being feared for your job or anything like that. It's that human connection between one person and another that you as a manager, these are some of the skills that you will need to have, especially when you're coaching with people. So you go into the conversation, and the conversation is based on what is their business challenges that they're facing at the moment. So you as a coach, you would be asking some really good questions. But before you get into being a coach, you have to build trust. You have to build that rapport with that other person, so they can come in and allow to be open and a little bit vulnerable if they need to be. But they've, number one, a coachee wants to be coached. You can't go into the conversation of I
Mm.
don't want to be coached, and you're in that scenario as a team leader, and you're going. And maybe it's part and parcel of not knowing what to do as a coach, as a team leader. Team leaders think, yeah, I'm a coach, I'm a coach, I'm a coach, but really, are they? Do they have the skills? Do they have the qualification? Do they have the actually understanding what needs must when you are being a coach? There's a lot of elements that you need connection. They have to have the buy-in that they want to be coached. And again, then let's have a look at the scenarios that and the areas that they want to be coached in, whether it's presenting to a client. Okay, what do you mean by that? Presenting. So you have to ask these really good questions, but listen to understand. I always like to say the analogy is when you're selling, you have to listen and you have to ask questions. When you're a coach, you have to listen, ask questions, and understand the other person. I think there's almost a similarity there, but you have to be really good at questioning. And it's two ears, one mouth, same as sales, but you're really listening and looking for as a coach to guide them through and help them to get what they want, because it's not about you, it's about that other person, and it is how you can get them from A to B and make them realize what they need to do rather than you telling them what they need to do.
Exactly, Jason, right? Because the only thing that happens when you tell somebody what to do is that you're telling them that you know more than them. That's the only thing that comes out of that situation, right? But you bring up, before you answer that question, you brought up a really good point that, like, in order to coach somebody well, somebody needs to be coachable, Jason. So the a good leader will be able to spot, does this person want to be coached? Can I
Mm,
coach that? If I'm going to invest my time with this person, do I truly believe that person is going to build to that relationship? Is it going to be an equal standing with that relationship? Because it has to be balanced, Jason. If they're not interested, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't
mm,
make them drink it. So it's
yep.
really important to understand, is that person coachable, right? And then going back to your question about what you said about, it's about questioning. Like, the questions are the answers as a coach, because, like, when somebody does something wrong, so why do you think that didn't go so well? And they'll reply, well, do you know what? I didn't, there was one part of the equation I didn't consider. Why didn't you consider that? And you keep digging down, Jason, until they go, ah. And then you go, what are you going to do next? How are you going to make sure this situation doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
So again, you're not giving the answers, you're questioning all the time, so that person can take responsibility and accountability for their actions, for what they've done and what they'll do next. What have they learned from that situation?
I think a lot of employers now are looking for people with a coachable mindset. And what I mean by that is, I don't know it all. Like I've been in sales, marketing, and all of that for many over 25 years. I don't know it all. I'd love other people to help me and support me in my personal growth. So when you're recruiting people, you going through the process and you're finding whether they got that fixed mindset, whether they're stuck in their ways, or they got an open mindset, and they have that growth way of thinking that I don't know it all and I'd love to be coached. I'd love to be supported. And it is that support. my manager is supporting me in my growth, in my potential. That's why they're here to be coached. And again, it's not easy. It takes a huge amount of practice. I know a lot of managers, and I've been doing quite a few programs really on coaching. It's practice, 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 practice. Get the area of practice with your peers, practice with your colleagues. Something that I heard on my audiobook today, and it's very true. And if you go to a sportsman, how many hours does a sportsman take to practice what they do before they have a race or a game for 30 minutes, an hour? They spend thousands of hours doing that, and they have that window, but they need the practice. A musician, as an example, takes thousands of hours on practicing their cello or their guitar or whatever for a performance which might only be an hour long, and then the next performance 3 months down the line or whatever. The same as you being a coach, you need lots of practice. But then your coachee also needs those role plays, those practices as well, to enable them to be successful at what they do before they go and engage with their clients, before they do anything else. So
Mm.
I believe, and I'm going to say practice again until people listen and hear, because it's just essential for your business before you go out and meet your clients. Having those coaching sessions and moments is just essential.
Yeah, and Jason, I think that's a really good analogy. Like when, if you're talking about peak performance of sports stars and teams, Jason, you look at some of the best, say, football teams in the world at the moment, right? You
Mhm.
looked at what Argentina did at the World Cup, right? They didn't just, these players didn't just get to a point where, okay, we're good enough now. Let's stop practicing, and they've won the World Cup. They're not going to say that now. They're going to keep practicing, Jason, because they know they need to. They don't just get to a level and then just take it for granted going forward. It's the exact same with people in a sales team and the exact same with a leader. They need to continually practice to stay at the top of their game and
Mm.
continually grow and improve to learn new things. And that again, talk about the balanced equation, that is as important for the coachee too. And even a great example you just brought up there, before you have a big meeting with a potential big customer, right? Why don't you do a dress rehearsal? Why don't you get to simulate the scenario, get someone to ask you all those difficult questions, as we say in Ireland, the Murphy Law questions,
Yep.
and make sure you have good answers. Even if you don't have the answer, what is a good answer when you don't have the answer to a question? So you can rehearse, work on the dynamic, and manage and lead and influence the dynamic, so you know by the end of the meeting that we got what we want, we gave the customer what we believe they wanted, so we both walk away knowing we've ticked all those boxes. You don't leave anything to chance. So I think that's a really good example you gave up about the role play before you get into any situations. And that's where, first of all, the coach can help you with that, but then the mentor could be the shadow going in and then giving you feedback after the situation. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? You did this very well. Have you thought about doing this in the future and help them build a better dynamic going forward?
Yeah, I think the mentoring process is partaking and giving your experience of the years and working with them. If it's a presentation deck that they need to go through, I remember years ago, I was going to Silicon Valley and we had a 50-page deck, and our mentor just went through that and just went, hang on a minute, you need to shrink that right down. So the presentation was, I don't know, so big, but he shrank it down and shrunk it down until it was like such a small deck. But he gave us some really good ideas on how we should present the deck, and that's what a mentor does. It sits with you, whether it's your presentation, whether it's advice on best ways to approach the sale, or whether it's other things on the CRM, whatever it might be. That's your mentor. They're there to sit with you and help you and steer you through and give you some solid experience. Or they just say, well, I think you best speak to that person in the organization. They're better positioned than me to help you. Obviously, I haven't got full experience in those sort of areas, but they offload the advice and give you some really good practical advice to move forward. And that's the best place scenario.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jason. And so there's a role for a synergistic view on how you bring your team forward. And as I said before, like the coach and the mentor can be sometimes the same person. Sometimes it can be useful not to change the dynamic up a bit, but I think that's very situational. It depends on the situation and the skill
Mm.
sets of the leader. Sometimes you may have a leader that doesn't know really what you do on the ground because they could be from a different industry, Jason, the way things work. But sometimes they are. They can give you general advice, but not specific to the industry. So it's very important to get that balance correct. And I always say, if you want to bring people on a journey, you got to train them before you blame them. You got to make sure you help them work the best way of doing sales for this company in this industry, in this marketplace with these set of customers. You can't just leave that to chance. So a good leader would also, to support their coaching and mentoring program, will have that mapped out as well. So people know coming in, this is how we do things here. And yes, we're open to things improving. If you've got great ideas, we can test them. But for now, this is our one best way of doing sales. And again, that to me is a really good starting point for any leader. Are you happy with the way things are being done now? If you want to coach people and mentor people, have you got the right platform to do it?
Mm. And there's lots of platforms out there that can help you. There's lots of, need I say, artificial intelligence platforms out
Mm.
there that will. Gong is one of them that I'm thinking of. It will record the call. It will pick out the nuances of the language that you use. It's an enabler tool. I think it can help you review the conversations that you've had via Zoom or whatever platform that you would use, obviously with the person's approval, record the call, take out and put it on a dashboard. That's here to help you, but and it will help you review previous sales calls that you have, or even role plays that you have, and you can just pick up what's been said. I think that's great, and I think that's incredible. But also, like myself, the human connection between one person and another, and really engage where and what they need to do to improve the challenges that they might be facing right now, and feed forward and how they're going to be improving that. But again, it's got to be their idea, and you're just agreeing with it. And there is sometimes a bit of a blend between coaching, but at the end of it, it's review and feedback, and maybe a
Yeah, yeah.
bit of mentoring within that. So it depends on the situation that you're in.
No, totally, Jason. And sometimes they don't always agree with you, and they go, "Well, I still think my way is the best way." And you have to say, "Okay, prove it to me." Let them go ahead. And do you know what? If they get success, you go, "Well done. I'm glad you took the initiative with that." If they don't, well, let's talk. What have you learned? What can you do better forward? Because again, it's really easy to tell people the best way to do something, Jason, but nobody learns. And that's not the goal of coaching or mentoring. They have to learn. They have to talk the talk and then walk the walk too, Jason. They're gonna slip up, they're gonna go down the wrong road sometimes. But then once they've learned, like the mistake, there's lifelong learning for one mistake, Jason. And the more mistakes you make, inevitably the better you're going to be, because
Yeah.
mistakes means you're trying. No sailor learned their skills on a calm sea, Jason, right?
Yep.
So it's really important to allow people to move forward, let them make mistakes, let them try. And it's great to see people trying, Jason. It really is. But if you're that dictator or micromanager, they're not going to try.
No.
They're not. You've
They're just waiting for
completely.
the other person to actually say, "Well, you do that, you do that."
Exactly. They become yes people. And you don't want a team. You brought them in because they have a set of skills, and then you just ruin it. It's like, and again, I'm going to use football team as an analogy. Like there was one player, I'm a Liverpool supporter, Torres, played amazing football with Liverpool. He went to Chelsea and then he was put in a corner and he was
Yep.
gone. So it's again allowing people to flourish, to learn, make the mistakes, pick themselves up when they move forward, be there with them along so they're not on their own. So it's
Yeah.
really important to be that and know that. But again, Jason, to the point you made earlier, if you're a leader, you have to, if you're going to invest your time, leadership is difficult. A lot of time involved in leadership. And then you have to coach and mentor people. You got to make sure you're doing that time and it serves the value of people who want this as well. 'Cause some people don't.
Yeah.
And then if they don't, you have to ask yourself the question, why are they here?
Yep. I love that point. And I think it's as it might seem negative to people, but failing is good as long as you don't keep failing at the same point. But as long as you know that, oh, what I just done, I failed on. But failure is only feedback, giving you a reason to improve on what just happened, and you that will stick with your head and go, well, I'm not going to be doing that again. Let me use my creative brain now and figure out a better way of doing it. And that's down to your team leader or your coach or your mentor to help you through that process and map out a plan forward. Like I think we've reached our pinnacle as usual. Shay, it's been a pleasure. What are the key takeaways that you're going to take away this time?
Well, takeaway for me, like fully rounded coach, right, involves performance, development, and counsel. One is okay on their own, but it has to be a combination of the three because that's taking a holistic approach and view of all the people that work for you. And that's really, really important. If you want to grow them in the business and the team, Jason, that's the way to do it.
Completely concur there. What I'm going to say is pretty much the coach is there to guide you, asking some wonderful questions, getting the coachee to think of the answers. And again, the mentor is there to sit with them and look at the challenge together and give partake knowledge and get them through that situation, whatever that might be
Exactly.
for
Brilliant.
success. Equally, there's success, but they're just done it from a different place.
Brilliant.
So, we just got a message from Tony Grant. If you're not making any mistakes, you're not doing much. Yep, I
Totally.
completely concur with that. Excellent feedback on that. If you're continually doing that, that's excellent. As long as you're moving forward and as long as you're not making the same ones again and again.
And you're not going through Groundhog Day with the same
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot for that, Tony. We shall see you next week on the
Yeah.
soft and system size to sales, and we'll be looking at sales leaders of the future, part 3.
Look forward to it, Jason. Thanks, everyone.